I know a lot about this hypervigilance that can arise from past traumatic experiences. For example, car crashes have reduced percentage-wise in Australia and numerically. And yet people fear them even more, and they're reported so much on the media. Media. So, is the problem the reporting, or the problem the crashes? Well, the doc was saying that the interesting thing is the emotions that arise from car crashes that don't arise from other things where heaps of people die. You know, like getting out of bed. Heaps of people die a year from that, or maybe jaywalking, you know?
That's sort of counted as car crashes.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. And other things that people don't care about very much, like earthquakes. But they care about gun massacres.
Well, that's pretty important.
Yeah, I know. But I mean that people focus on things that don't result in as many deaths, but for an emotional reason. They more visual, maybe. They affect people more in their psyche. That's what the doc was saying, right?
Yes, that was what he was saying.
Awesome. So the real question that the doc asked Gab was, why was he focusing on certain things that he brought up with the doc, even if they may not seem so important? And it was because maybe they're connected to deeper emotional reasons. Trauma, past trauma. America. You see, I've been in 2 wars. I know a lot about past trauma, how to deal with it. You eagle up, and you raise your boys. But you know, Gab doesn't have boys, and he ain't no eagle. Alright, Gab?
I believe that's correct.
That's right. Alright, so he deals with it this way with Wednesday Wisdom, so he can share it with all you guys. So one thing I've always admired about Gab is the fact that he faces his fears, and he uses a lot of logic to rationalize, or at least try to understand it without so much emotion. It's part of the autism that helps him do that.
I've sort of always seen that as a disadvantage.
No, man, that's an advantage. Focus on your strengths. Build them up. You see, the first time that the Gabs mitigated a fear with logic was when he was about 8 years old. And he asked his mom why the truck in front of them wasn't falling over when it turned a corner. And his mother said, she said that the weight was distributed close to the bottom, so the top didn't have as much weight, and so when it turned, it wasn't gonna tip over. So the Gabs at 8 learned about weight distribution, and that helped him get rid of his fear, and ultimately, he got his truck license to eliminate the whole fear. Very cool. You see, Gab, I agree with the doc, and that is that when you have this fear, that fear can become a memory. You know, when something happens, like to some of my fallen comrades back in 1982. I salute you. Anyway, that fear that can come from a past trauma. You see, that comes from an event, and that event has variables, and those variables can reappear in unrelated events of the future, aka now, the present.
Do you have an example?
Yeah, you know, like for example, let me think. Alright. So, let's say you're at a pedestrian crossing, you know, because you guys don't have wings. Unbelievable. And you get hit by a cab.
We call them taxis.
Yeah, cab. Alright. Then, you're gonna have a fear of pedestrian crossings and cabs. It's a survival instinct. It happens with you guys, it happens with eagles. Not with me, though. It can happen with rabbits, because of their fear of eagles. This is completely normal. But what you were doing, Gab, because you're a bleeding heart liberal. Anyway, you were blaming yourself for having those feelings, because they were related to people. You see, certain types of people abused you, man. And so you had a natural fear of people that look like that. In your case, it was... what are they called?
Oh, look, we're all Australian, but we call them growing up Aussies.
You mean like Anglo-Saxon?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. So you'd have a natural fear, but you tried to overcome that fear, but you were judging yourself for having that fear in the first place. That's your mistake.
What do you mean?
That's right. It was a mistake.
I thought it was right.
Wrong! You see, that's a survival instinct. You just gotta recognize it as a tool, an evolutionary biological tool. Alright? Now it's what you do with it that decides over time whether you become a bad dude or a good hombre. Alright, so it's not good or bad that you have that fear. You recognize it as a tool that your brain has given you. Alright? Then you either face that fear or you avoid it. If you avoid it, your brain thinks that it was right to avoid it, and so it reinforces that fear. And then over time, you can become prejudiced. That's the wrong way to do it. What you do is you face that fear.
Can't there be a neutral way?
No, man. That's called not being alive. Life is hard, and that's a reason why. You either run away or you face it. Now, as you face it and you realize that most Anglo-Saxon people are just people and awesome like most people, that'll build up positive memories for you. And then all of those over time will help mitigate the fear. You see what I mean?
Yeah, it's great. That's what the doc said.
That's right. I like your doc. He's a good guy. Alright, guys. That was my intro to Wednesday Wisdom. Part 1 will be on Periscope, but this was a summary on YouTube for all you awesome YouTube fans. Then Part 2 will come. I don't think I can make it, man. I gotta go look after my boys. After my boys. Been hanging out in Australia for too long, man.
All right, Eagle. Good to see you.
Yeah. Alright.